Ooh, how's everybody doing? Good? Everybody get some food? Yeah? Who wanted it at least? Some people are holding out probably to leave a little bit later after this talk because it's super important, right? So greetings, thank you for coming in. My name is Aaron Gustafson and I'm a principal program manager at Microsoft. I'm also an advocate for web standards and accessibility. That's kind of the main thing that I've been doing for the last 20 plus years. And in a nutshell, I work to make the web a little bit more open and a little bit more accessible to more people, no matter what their platform, their device, their browser, assistive tech they rely on, or limitations they may have interacting with the web. And that's why I'm excited to talk to you all about progressive web apps, because I feel like that's an evolution in what it is that it means to create truly accessible experiences for people. So you've probably seen one article or maybe a dozen articles talking about how progressive web apps or PWAs change literally everything that you know about the web or building applications, right? People are predicting that it's game changers for digital agencies or that it's going to change the mobile landscape, et cetera, et cetera. Some of which is true, some of which is, of course, hyperbole. But we have seen some really great successes with progressive web apps so far, and these are relatively new technology. So here we have Carnival Cruise Line. They've seen a 24% opt-in rate and 42% open rate for push notifications, which are enabled in a web standards way via Service Worker, which is part of progressive web apps. And these links at the bottom that are in the slides can actually take you to the white papers and such that talk about all of these. Starbucks has seen a two-time increase in daily active users of their progressive web app over their mobile apps. And interestingly, I don't know how many of you saw my talk at Build this year, but we actually announced that they're actually seeing 40% of their order aheads, which are done via the PWA, are taking place on the desktop, which is not a traditional space that we think of with progressive web apps. All the hype's been around progressive web apps being this mobile thing, right? But they're actually seeing huge successes in desktop there. Tinder actually got their app down to took about 90% of their code away in moving from a native app to a PWA. I still feel like roughly 3 megs is pretty big for an app, for a PWA. To give you a little additional context, Twitter, when they replaced their UWP app in the Windows or in the Microsoft Store with the PWA version, they went from around like 170 megabytes to about 167K for the initial install, which is a pretty dramatic drop. Trivago has seen a 97% increase in clickouts to hotel offers in their progressive web app. West Elm has seen increased time on site and increase of revenue also in using PWAs. And again, this is all super, super new stuff. But what this all kind of comes down to say is that PWAs are pretty darn significant when it comes to advancing the web. And we believe that the web can and should reach beyond the browser, which is why we're so invested in the success of progressive web apps. And we're not alone in this. Microsoft isn't kind of just the only one towing the line here. Google, Mozilla, Apple, Opera, Samsung, and many others are all backing PWAs. In fact, every major browser currently supports the technical underpinnings of progressive web apps, and not just on mobile either. Microsoft, Google, and Mozilla are all actively working also to enable PWAs to successfully install on desktops and laptops too. So there's a lot of people who are behind this. Now, what exactly is a progressive web app? There is, I would say, a lot of misinformation out there about what a progressive web app is, what it needs to be, what technical solutions you need to use in order to create one. And I'm going to talk a lot about how to get started with building PWAs, but first I want to level set and make sure that everybody is kind of on the same page with what a progressive web app is. So, at least from a technical standpoint. So I'm going to walk through what I call the MV PWA, which is a minimum viable PWA. And these are the 3 things that you absolutely need in order to have something that qualifies for being considered a progressive web app. And this is based on a definition Alex Russell coined, who was also one of the co-coiners of the term progressive web apps. So the first thing you need to do is your site needs to be running on HTTPS, which hopefully most of you are doing currently anyway. Security is a really important thing. Privacy for your users is a really important thing. So that's the first bit. The second bit is having this thing called a web app manifest. And what a web app manifest is a JSON file that contains a bunch of meta information about your site. So things like the name of your site, a short name that could be displayed on like a home screen or something like that. It can have icon information, maybe colors that you want, the orientation that you're anticipating. There's a bunch of other configuration options in there, but it's basically all of the meta stuff that we used to put in the head of our HTML documents now can be contained just within a JSON file and served directly from the server. So that's a web app manifest. So that's the second thing we need. The third thing we need is a service worker. Now, this is probably the most complicated piece of the progressive web app triumvirate here. But basically, to sum up what a service worker is, in the traditional web, the way that we had interaction between a browser and the internet was the browser made a request, and then the internet spit back what that request was. Oversimplification for sure. There's a lot of communication back and forth and handshakes and things like that take place. But in a nutshell, that's what happened, right? Now, with service worker in play, it's kind of like your own personal man in the middle. You get to control all of the network requests, everything that happens, and it's all JavaScript. So it's a JavaScript-based proxy that sits between your app and the internet, and it runs in the browser, and it runs as a worker. That's why it's called a service worker, so it runs on its own thread. Okay, so what a service worker can do is if a request is made from the browser, it can look in the cache first and decide to respond to that with a cached or a stale document or a stale asset rather than making any connection to the network at all. Or maybe you've got an offline page and the network happens to have an interruption. The service worker can actually grab that offline page out of the cache and supply that instead of what was requested. You can also do things like check to see if the item that's being requested exists in the cache. If it doesn't, then you can go out to the network and pull that back and respond with the network request, right? But this gives you complete control over how all of these things work. So you could even go out to the network, get your network request back, cache a stale copy of it for next time, just in case the network goes down, and then respond with the live request. And then the next time somebody hits that page, if they happen to be offline, they happen to go through a tunnel or a dead spot on a cellular network or something like that, they can still get access to the information that they'd accessed previously. And there's a ton of other stuff that service worker can do, including push notifications and such, which are way beyond the scope of this talk, because this is about getting started with PWAs. So if you want to dig into that, which I highly recommend, check out Ali Alabas's talk tomorrow morning at 10:45. That's all about what service worker can do. I'm sorry, I don't have the code for that one, but definitely recommend checking out his talk. So what all of this means is that any site, literally any site on the web, can be a PWA with these three pieces in play. So you don't need to be using any particular framework. You don't even need to have a single page application, SPA, which so many people are like, oh, we need to use all of these different frameworks and stuff like that. You don't need to. You could do it with a bunch of static HTML files. In fact, that's what I did. I took the first edition of my book, Adaptive Web Design, and I put that online. And then I added a service worker and a web app manifest for it. And guess what? It's a PWA. And it's all static HTML files. Right? It even includes the videos. So the first time you go to view the book, it downloads all the video assets, all the image assets, all of the chapters of the book, and you get the whole thing offline, which is pretty nice. So, and that's a PWA, just like Twitter's a PWA, and Uber and all of these other companies have created awesome PWAs. So, in truth, PWAs are all about starting with a great web experience and then enhancing that experience for performance, for resilience, for installation in some cases, and for engagement. The key here is the word enhance. You're starting with something that is a great web experience, right? Before you begin experimenting with service workers or building a web app manifest and such, you really need to start with a great core web experience, and then you build up that experience, and then you begin to layer on these additional pieces to build up your progressive web app. The folks at Cloud4 actually have a great overview about how they've approached building out their progressive web app. and they actually called it progressing a progressive web app, and they talked about each of the individual pieces they began to add to their site in order to turn it into a PWA, including how they continued to evolve their service worker approach to handle things like offline and then to do more robust caching. Because you can do some really weird things with it too, like if you know the browser can accept WebP images, you could go ahead and change every JPEG request to a WebP request to save bandwidth. There's all sorts of crazy things that you can do with Service Worker. But before you get into that, focus on the core experience. And that's the bulk of what I'm going to be talking about today, is how to begin, how to think about that great web experience before you kind of start tucking into the Service Worker stuff. So I would say that the hallmarks of any great web experience include universal availability. So that means any network, any device, and any browsing context. And it also includes universal accessibility, which means we don't put any barriers between our users, our customers, and the content they're trying to access or the interactions that they're trying to have on our website, the tasks they're trying to complete. So I am going to actually hand it off really quickly to my friend Matt Rowe here from the Office team to talk about making Office.com a great web experience.
Thanks, Aaron. Good afternoon. So my name is Matt Rowe. I'm a program manager on the team that manages Office.com and is currently in the process of delivering that same experience on Windows 10 devices as the Office app, which will be a PWA-based Office app. So let's start by talking about what we've been doing to make Office.com a great web experience. So over the course of the past year or two, our team has been really investing in Office.com as a great place for users to start and get back to the work that they're doing across all of the Office properties. So we brought the full value of the Office 365 subscription into a single place. We brought in things like your recently used documents and document recommendations. We brought all your applications across both your AAD third-party applications and your first-party applications provided by Microsoft. We've also introduced a bespoke experience that we call the Office Gallery that enables you not just to look at what applications you have available, but helps you find the right application for the task that you're trying to accomplish and provides benefits like tips and tricks about how to get more out of Office, recommended applications that you may not have used before. And of course, all of this is presented in a way that's personalized, that's built for teams, that's simple, and is covered by Microsoft-wide enterprise search, which is a great web experience. Now, the benefits of this experience are pretty significant. Over the last year, we've seen a 2x growth in our monthly active usage to 40 million monthly active users across both consumer and commercial. And we've also had a 6x improved success rate with our enterprise-wide search. So pretty significant numbers. This is a great web experience. But we're obviously not here to talk just about the website. We're here to talk about how we deliver this as a PWA. So using the PWA model, we've been able to rapidly bring all of the value of Office.com down onto the Windows desktop for users who are desktop-centric in a way that is natural and has provided some great benefits for us. So let's break down this great web experience that we've taken, and let's go back to those categories of installation, engagement, performance, and resilience, and talk about how the PWA architecture has helped us accomplish those things. So starting with installation. So we always kind of have this philosophy that you should be able to type Office into Windows Search on a Windows desktop, and there should be something that helps you get started or get back to your work with Office. And so we have that capability by delivering the Office.com experience as a PWA. And this is huge for IT administrators who say, listen, I don't want to have to tell my users to open a browser and type in Office.com. It's just one more step, or it's actually several more steps. This is easy. It's right there. This is pinnable. You can put it on your desktop. It's a full application on Windows 10. And that removes barriers to getting started with work. The other thing that this enables us to do is have a much reduced package size. So we were replacing the existing My Office app, and we're reducing that package size from several hundred megabytes down to just a handful of megabytes, which is a great move for large enterprise deployments where you're dealing with bandwidth concerns. Now let's talk a little bit about engagement. So because of our position on the desktop, we can take all of that value that we deliver in Office.com and extend it to support things that are unique to the desktop. So we have seamless integration with local files. We can detect and open local applications rather than launching the web versions. We also can provide a great on-ramp to modern teamwork. So users who have a bunch of local files on their computer but have access to OneDrive can now share those files in a way that's very natural, looks just like sharing a cloud file, and we can just say, hey, you know, this is a local file. In order to share this out, we're going to need to upload it to your OneDrive. And that provides a much more natural pathway than some of the other things we've done to try to get users to move files to the cloud. So it just kind of brings all of that value down onto the desktop for the user. Performance. So on office.com, on our team, we talk about Office needs to be freaky fast. And the reason is that there are huge barriers that are created when users have to wait. Even a couple seconds of delay time can create a massive drop-off in usage and referral success rate. And so we want to make office.com super fast, freaky fast. And we've been able to do that with the PWA. Our DOM render time has gone down by over 100%, from around 5 seconds to 1.5 seconds. That's still a little bit higher than we want it to be. We're continuing to work there. I can talk a lot more about how we're using service worker to accomplish that, so I'll plug Ali's talk tomorrow, 10:45. I'll actually show some demos and get into some of the tech that we're using to make that a reality. Lastly, let's talk about resilience. So one of the things that you have to be if you're an application is you have to be able to work in all scenarios. You have to be able to work offline, you have to be able to work online. And Service Worker has given us the ability to support those scenarios and also support scenarios like spotty bandwidth or kind of intermittent bandwidth. And it also makes the experience seem more app-like, right? I expect an app to open and I expect it to be immediately populated with the data that I want to get back to my work. And so we are able to do that using Service Worker. So kind of summarizing, we're able to bring the full value of Office.com, multiple years of investment and work, and we're able to bring that down to Windows 10 and deliver it as a desktop experience very quickly. And we were able to do this, we're able to provide app-specific differentiated value, so not just what we have on the web on the desktop, now we're actually able to differentiate and provide value that is desktop-centric. And most importantly for this slide, we were able to do that quickly. Within a very short period of time, we were take all that value that we already have developed, all that code that we've already developed, and deliver it in a desktop experience as a PWA on Windows 10. And so now I'm going to hand it back to Aaron to talk more about how those outcomes can be a reality for you.
Thank you, Matt. All right. So I want to point out, because I think this often gets overlooked when we think about the term progressive web apps, a lot of focus gets placed on those last two words, web app. And you can debate what a web app is and what a web app isn't on your own time. But I want to focus on the word progressive because I think this does get overlooked quite frequently. And it's progressive with good reason. So progressive definition is that it's happening or developing gradually or in stages, proceeding step by step. And this actually aligns with the philosophy of progressive enhancement, which some of you may be familiar with as well. And I'd be happy to talk at length about progressive enhancement, but not in this talk. So I want to tuck into kind of what that looks like, what progressiveness means in terms of building up that great web experience and how we get there. So the first thing that we must challenge ourselves with is to focus on what matters. The core purpose of coming to a page, this page in this instance, is coming to read content, right? But content is so lost on this page. Now, granted, this was Forbes in 2007, so this has been long replaced, thank God. But we see this all the time in web interfaces where there's just so much competition for our attention, and it makes it really difficult for users to actually focus on what is important, right? We're actually putting our users at a disadvantage. We're making it harder for them to do what they came here to do. When we talk about getting focused, a lot of times people start to talk about this idea of mobile first. And mobile first isn't something that's saying that mobile is better, but it's a focused mindset. It's a framework for thinking about the experiences that we build by imagining we only have a limited canvas to work with. And obviously that helps in the context of mobile, but it helps in desktop too, where we're constantly resizing apps, or in some cases pinning apps next to one another. So we need to ask ourselves several questions like, why is the user here? What tasks do they need to accomplish? Is there anything on the screen that distracts from that? You might see this referred to within the Microsoft documentation as inductive user interface. We sometimes use that term. But ultimately, it's about getting focused on what it is that's important and getting rid of the cruft. We also need to remember that text is the first interface. A lot of times we forget about this. We need to be sure that the copy is written clearly. We want to make sure that we're using language that our users actually understand. We want to make sure that the copywriting voice is appropriate to our organization, but also that we're setting the appropriate tone given the circumstances. There's a fantastic resource called voiceandtone.com from the folks at MailChimp, where they actually walk through what is MailChimp's voice, but how does that voice shift in terms of its tone based on the scenario that a user is in. So if they're just creating their awesome email campaign, it's very encouraging, it's playful, but if there's an error, they don't make jokes, right? Like that's not an appropriate place to be clever and silly, right? Somebody's frustrated because their email campaign didn't go out. So that's what tone is versus voice and why that's important. And we often lose sight of it, but language actually influences how people use and think about our products. It can create friction in the user journey, or it can foster delight. And how you talk to your users matters because it makes them care or not about your product. So Voice and Tone is a fantastic resource. Another one that I would highly recommend if this is an area that you're interested in exploring is Nicely Said. That's a book from Nicole Fenton and Kate Kiefer-Lee. Kate Kiefer-Lee is of MailChimp. But that's another fantastic book for learning about how to be a better copywriter. And it's also worth noting that for some people, text may be the only experience they ever have of your creations. So, and that means people who are using screen readers or using voice response systems or smart speakers and such. Now, once we've focused on what the core purpose of an interface is or of a page is, we need to flip it around and ask, is there anything that we can add that actually will add value to the experience? Like helper text, placeholders. Maybe there's some nice affordances that we can create using JavaScript and stuff like that. But it's all enhancing the experience as opposed to being necessary for kind of that baseline experience. Now, after we've focused on the core purpose of an interface, focused on what's important, we begin looking for other ways to enhance that. And so the first step in beginning to enhance our experiences is to add markup that actually does that for us, that enhances that and supports that. So if the words we choose matter, the markup actually matters equally, potentially more in some instances. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why. So here's a bunch of what I would call div soup. It's pretty meaningless. It's marking up a blog post. And I want to walk through how all of these divs can actually be converted into something that is meaningful for our users. Right? So this first div, the outer wrapper of the whole thing, it encloses a blog post. And that blog post is a self-contained piece of content. Well, there's a tag for that, the article element, which was introduced in HTML5. Now, by using the article element instead of the div, we've actually given this container a purpose and a meaning, right? Changes like this are relatively easy to do. In fact, they're pretty simple to do and straightforward. And if your CSS follows BEM or any of those kind of class-based strategies and such, you can swap out these elements and probably have no visual impact on your site at all. So it's kind of a no-brainer to go ahead and do it. You just leave the class in place, and the element will take on those styles. So the next div here is the title of the post. Hopefully most of you in this room are like, that should be a heading. Yes, it absolutely should be a heading. We've got a bunch of heading elements. We have everything from H1 to H6. H1 elements are for the most important heading on the page, H6 for the least important. So in this case, I'll go ahead. It's the title of a blog post, so we'll make it an H1. And again, leaving the class in place so the styles just remain consistent. Now, in this next little bit, we have some entry meta information. And I know that because I'm using some BEM style classification here, so entry __ meta. Now, this is a bunch of divs, which are basically being used to lay these out in successive blocks and then having them contained in another block. Well, there's actually an element for that as well. There's this thing called a definition list, or a description list. Sorry, they've changed it from definition to description. A description list, which traditionally we used to think of as just being for glossaries and things like that. But actually, it's for any sort of key value pairs that you need to use in your markup. And it even supports multiples, so you could have multiple description terms and multiple description definitions linked together. So 2 terms defined by a single description, or 2 descriptions for the same term, or multiple. So in this case, published is the term and being described by 24 May 2017, and then reading time being the term described by 25 minutes. Okay. The date could actually also be written in an HTML5 element, the time element, which indicates a date or time, or both. You can even expand it to provide machine-readable date information. So here are a couple examples of that. You can do just the straight-up date. You can include the time, or you can even include the time zone information as well for the offset. So moving down a little further, now we have the meat of the post, right? This is the post content. And right now, it's just a bunch of text with line breaks in it. And I used to see this stuff all the time, especially in the early days of the web, where people just wanted to put spaces between paragraphs, right? Now, to get it to layout block, you could also put these in div elements, but this is just generic divisions of content. It's not meaningful, right? It doesn't say anything about how these blocks are functioning. These blocks are paragraphs, so we should be using paragraph elements to provide that information. That just exposes what this content does in between. And one thing that's worth noting is that voice assistants and screen readers and such, when they encounter markup like this, will actually insert a natural pause between the paragraphs of text as opposed to running them all into one another. So it becomes a much better listening experience as well for people who rely on those assistive technologies. Now, some of you in the audience may be asking this question. If the CSS makes it all look the same anyway, why should I care? Right? Why should I be bothered with what the markup is under the hood? Right? As long as it's presented the same, I really don't care. Well, there are a couple of reasons why we need to pay attention to this stuff. The first thing is readability. So kind of going back to the resilience piece we discussed earlier, what happens if your CSS doesn't make it to the user? You know, there's some sort of network issue. Maybe your CDN goes down, or there's a hiccup in the network connection or something like that. If your CSS doesn't reach your user, they may end up with something that doesn't read very well, right? And that's a problem. If we actually use semantic markup, it's always going to look good, right? Even if that CSS doesn't make it, we still have something that is completely legible and useful to us. It's also worth noting that this same sort of thing applies if somebody uses Instapaper, Pocket, any of those sort of save for later reading apps, or the reader views in Safari or Edge. They will have a much better experience reading your content if you actually use semantic markup. Okay. Poor semantics is actually an exclusionary design choice that causes a mismatch between the structure that a sighted person can infer from the visual design and the structure that's available to somebody who relies on assistive technologies like a screen reader. We actually create accessibility issues, right? We actively do those, right? When we build only for people like us, which would be, people like us is the people in gray here, and the red is everybody else, and we fail to consider the variability of human experience out there. There are lots of ways that different people need to interact with the stuff that we create. And if we only design for people like us, we leave all of those people out. Or if you want to put your business hat on, all those people in red are people we're not going to get money from, right? Because they can't use our product. So there's actually a business advantage to thinking about accessibility and incorporating it from the get-go and building with other people in mind. So using good semantics helps you to build that consideration in from the very beginning, because meaning is being conveyed in multiple ways, both visually with our CSS and such, but also non-visually because we're actually using semantic markup. And because all of these elements are actually standardized as part of the HTML spec, it means they can be understood by a broader audience. And it means that the correct accessibility mappings are put in place so that assistive technology actually knows what to do with the different elements. And the interaction, the burden of creating interactions is placed on the browser vendors as opposed to us as the developers. We don't have to basically patch all of the different experiences in JavaScript in order to get something to work properly when we use these standardized semantic elements. All that stuff comes for free. We don't have to ship more code. We can also do much more with semantic markup. So, hey, Cortana, read me the top 3 headlines in today's New York Times, right? With this, a smart speaker could actually go to NewYorkTimes.com, nytimes.com, capture the first headline of the first 3 article elements within, let's say, something that's identified as top news, right? It could even determine, maybe via the time element, what the latest 3 are. So even prioritization on the page doesn't matter. It could actually figure out that stuff from it. So don't worry about understanding the JavaScript here, but just to kind of key in to how you can use this, if I'm pulling in the content via a fetch request or AJAX query or something like that, I can then use query selector to go ahead and get those heading elements from articles. So in this case, I'm grabbing H1s, H2s, and H3s from inside top news. So because that structure exists, I can actually use it and do some pretty cool stuff without having to create a specific API for a given smart device. Right? It's pretty cool. Lots of stuff for free. I like free. You can read more about semantics for headless UIs in an article that I wrote called Conversational Semantics that's on a list apart. So if you're interested in tucking into this a bit more. I have a forthcoming article that'll talk a bit more about doing this for forms as well, which is a bit more involved. So good markup practices also help you to make your sites more resilient because they reduce dependencies. And this is, I think, a really important thing. So let's say you want to code a button, probably the simplest interface element that can possibly exist that everybody needs, right? There are a lot of options for doing that. So you could have an input of type submit, you could have a button element of type submit, an anchor element maybe that we give a class of button, or maybe a div, right, that we also give a class of button. But all of these are trying to do the same thing. They're trying to create a button that submits a form. So let's compare, right? Let's compare them across a bunch of different qualities. So in terms of display, whether it displays as a button or not, the input and the button actually display as buttons by default. The anchor element looks like a link by default. The div just looks like a block level element, right? In terms of semantics, what's exposed to assistive technology, the first 2 are exposed as buttons, as we would expect. The link is just a generic named element because it doesn't actually have an anchor that it's going to. It was a hash or an octothorpe in the href there. And the div isn't exposed at all. There's no accessible name for that element. The buttons are focusable. The link is focusable. This is using the keyboard. The div is not focusable by default. The 2 button types can be interacted with via mouse, via touch, via the enter key, or the space bar. The anchor element can't be activated by a space bar by default. So to get that sort of parity, we're going to have to fix that. And divs, they're not interactive elements at all. So we have to add that in. And then the first 2, the buttons, are made to submit forms. So they will do that by default, no additional coding necessary. Right? We don't get that with anchors and divs. So how do we patch those holes? Well, we have all of these holes, all on the anchor and the div side, and we need to patch those with additional dependencies. So we have a CSS dependency in order to make anchors and divs look like buttons. We have an ARIA dependency, which stands for Accessible Rich Internet Applications spec, which is a spec that maps UI controls over to HTML. So it allows you to expose an anchor as a button using a role attribute. And then we have some additional HTML that we can inject into the document, the tab index element or tab index attribute, which can make the div focusable. And then we have a lot of JavaScript that we need to put in there in order to enable the anchor to be submitted with a space bar and in order to let the div do absolutely anything, right? So that's a lot of extra code that we need to build. And that's a lot of extra code we need to send over the wire. It's a lot of extra code that just needs to be downloaded. It's a lot of extra code that may not reach our users, right? So we've created this very fragile experience if we're only allowing the forms to be submitted by anchors and by divs, which is problematic. Mo dependencies, mo problems. This is absolutely true. And the reason that this is the case on the web is because we don't control a heck of a lot when it comes to the web. And this is one thing that I found a lot of people who come from traditional software development kind of have a hard time grasping, or they just don't even want to think about it at all, because we don't control the execution environment. We don't control the network our code goes over, right? There are tons of people, if you're not running under HTTPS, or in some cases even if you are, there are bad actors in the networking space that will manipulate your content as it moves through. And there are instances where your stuff may not arrive in the way that you expect it to. So a good example is a while back, Sky Broadband, which is one of the largest UK broadband providers. They sort of accidentally marked jQuery as malware if it was served from the jQuery CDN. So any site that their customers tried to access that relied on jQuery served from the jQuery CDN, they weren't getting any JavaScript interaction at all. And many sites were just dead in the water for about a day. A similar thing happened just recently where jQuery CDN's SSL certificate expired. So if somebody was using jQuery from the CDN under SSL, their sites died. Like, that's not good, not good. Obviously, we can also introduce errors in our code, but no one in this room, I'm sure, writes error-ridden code, especially not JavaScript, so we're probably good there. But we also don't control the plugins that our users use, and a lot of those have direct access to manipulate the DOM and manipulate the JavaScript world, because everything is mutable. We don't have control over what interaction methods our users require, so whether they're doing touch or pen or keyboard or mouse or what have you, or voice. So we don't control a heck of a lot. And that's kind of scary. A colleague of mine actually looped me in when he encountered a terrifying example of this recently. So Chrome 66 knocked out SSL. So basically, for those of you who don't remember, Symantec had an issue with SSL certificates that were issued before June 1st of 2016. And so Chrome began mistrusting those SSL certificates as of Chrome version 66. So basically, if your site was running SSL, but it was on one of these certificates, now all of a sudden it wasn't under SSL, or if your CDN was using one of those certificates and you were running under HTTPS, all of a sudden all of your CDN assets weren't going to be loaded because they were insecure, et cetera. So my friend Michael Spellacy sent me this because about 200 of his employer sites got hit because their CDN was using one of these expired certificates. But because he'd actually done the right thing, they still continue to work, which is pretty awesome, or at least most of them did. So instead of thinking about more dependencies creating more problems, I want to flip this around and get you to think about building for that core experience that works universally for everybody, and then improving that as we have the ability to do so. What this ensures is that your experience is going to be available to anybody, no matter what, and then people who have the ability to take advantage of improved UX can actually get that improved experience. And that's where you deliver that extra code. Now, a really great example of this in kind of the HTML space, built-in progressive enhancement, is the new input types that we have available to us. So here we have an email type input. Right? Now, this automatically creates several experience deltas for our users. So first of all, there's the question of whether the browser supports the email input type. If it doesn't, then this field just gets rendered as an input field, just a straight up text field, which is what we had for the previous 15 years on the web and worked just fine, right? But if they do have support for that new input type, we can start to do some new interesting things. So we can validate for whether the email address is a valid email address, all built into the browser, no JavaScript required. So then there's a question of whether the browser supports that. There are some browsers that would actually understand if the field was invalid, but may not actually block the form from submitting. Safari did that for a number of years. But browsers that understand and implement the validation API will stop a user from being able to submit the form if the field's not valid, if there's not a valid email address in there, which is pretty cool. And then the third delta is for people who are using touchscreen devices. They can get actually like a fully customized keyboard entry specific to entering emails, so they get the @ symbol and stuff like that. For those wondering why the spacebar is there, you can actually input multiple email addresses in a email field. So spacebar is still valid. But that's pretty awesome. We've got these 3 different experiences of that same interface. Now, if we move on inside of this element, there's the required attribute. So this was another addition from HTML5, indicating that a field is required. So the experience delta here is, does the browser support just basic required validation? If it doesn't, then we need to have some server-side fallback. Certainly, we could have some client-side fallback too if we want, using JavaScript. But that's one experience delta. And then the ARIA required attribute was added from the Accessible Rich Internet Applications spec. And that exposes to assistive technology whether the field is actually required. So this actually has 2 potential experience delta issues because, first of all, the browser needs to expose that property, and then the AT actually needs to know to consume it and expose it itself, whether it's a screen reader or a touch feedback device or something like that. So kind of going back to this arc of enhancement here, we basically have this continually improving experience that's all predicated on one element, right? Just one input with 2 additional attributes added to it. Okay, all of these different experiences. It creates a great continuum of experience, and it basically rises to meet the needs of our users in whatever situation they're at, which is super elegant. I love it, very powerful. So when you think of user experience as a continuum like this that scales with device capabilities and user capabilities, this progressive approach is very elegant and very powerful. All right, so now that we've looked at the core experience, we've looked at how to enhance that with markup that actually has meaning, we can begin to look at how design can support this experience as well. So if you think about layout, for instance, on this same sort of a continuum, you could map it out something like this. You had these basic blocks that sat one on top of another. Then we started to have the ability to float things left and right, and people started making multi-column layouts and stuff like that. We have positioning. With media queries, all of a sudden we were able to change the layout based on the amount of screen real estate we have available to us. And then we have these newer tools like Flexbox and Grid for laying out elements in relation to one another in both 1 dimension and 2 dimensions, which is pretty cool. Now, Manuel Matosevich actually demonstrated this beautifully in an article that he did for Smashing Magazine, and this is the demo for that. And in it, he's got this basic block level display, and you can actually use a slider to enhance it using floats, and then enhance it again using Flexbox, and then enhance it again using Grid. And the reason that you're actually able to do this is because CSS is built to enable progressive enhancement like this. So if you use floats, and then you introduce rules that apply a Flexbox layout to those same elements, the rendering engine actually knows to throw away those float-related rules because they don't apply, and Flexbox takes over. If you then also have grid styles applied to those same elements, it throws away the Flexbox rules as well. And so you have this nice way of creating these enhanced experiences better and better depending on what the user's browser is capable of doing, which is pretty awesome. And I'll talk about how some of the underpinnings of this work from a technical standpoint shortly. So to begin with, I want to clarify the purpose of design, which is to clarify and to remove friction from experience. Design is problem solving. Design is not window dressing, which I think it often gets painted as. Now, graphic design offers a number of tools for illuminating content and providing meaning and structure. I'm going to talk just about a couple of them here and demonstrate how they're used in a couple of different interfaces. So we have alignment, which helps our eyes to move efficiently through an interface. We have contrast, which we use to draw eyes to important areas and away from less important areas. How we size items in relation to one another can help layouts feel more natural. For example, the golden ratio, which is shown here in the Trivago PWA. And proximity helps sighted people to group-related things. So because of this gap, this space between the field for the email input and the label for the password input, we know that the password label goes to the password field and the email label goes to the email field visually, right? Because they're more proximal to the inputs that they're related to. A consistent vertical rhythm can make a layout feel more structured and can actually improve readability. And unity, for example, repeating a color throughout a design can make an interface feel more cohesive. Now, graphic design is traditionally focused on print, but many of its considerations obviously apply to the web as well. And while the web can be print-like, the web is not print. So there are some additional considerations that we need to take into account. So screen size, resolution, brightness, color density, user preferences, network speed and quality, and assistive technology in use. So ways that we've come about addressing these, in terms of screen size, we address that with responsive layouts. Resolution differences we can address with things like SVG, which is scalable vector graphics, which will look crisp, small or large. We also have responsive images using the picture element or the source set and sizes attributes on an image. We have the ability to control the contrast of our designs, which takes into account the brightness of the screen. Better contrast is better for people who turn down their brightness when their battery is running low. Just a quick hint. Please do that. The color choices that we make and the media queries that we use can help us to address color density issues. I'm going to skip over user preference and circle back to it momentarily. But we can deal with network speed and quality by using things like responsive images, by relying on system fonts is another way that we can do that, rather than relying on custom typefaces, which tend to be very large, which leaves us with user preference and assistive technology. So a couple of examples of user preferences. So being able to resize text. If we actually do things like set our media queries such that we're using M elements or a relative font size as the kind of triggers for our different layouts, we can provide the best reading experience no matter what size somebody wants to view their text in their browser. We can adapt to high contrast colors, in this case using media queries that are unique to Windows. Using -ms, -high contrast, we can determine whether high contrast is enabled, but we can also determine whether somebody is in black on white or white on black mode, which is pretty cool. We're also looking at potentially trying to standardize dark mode as something that could be automatically picked up in a website from the OS, since both Windows and Mac OS support that now. There's also reduced motion. So some users have things like vestibular disorders that a lot of motion on a screen can give them seizures and stuff. So you can actually use, people can indicate that they prefer reduced motion, and there's a media query that you can use in order to provide a less heavily animated experience for those users. It's about 70 million people, by the way, vestibular disorders. And then in terms of assistive technologies, there are a lot of pitfalls to consider. And designing with accessibility in mind can be quite a challenge. And it's unlikely that you'll ever be able to claim that your product is 100% accessible, but removing barriers is a process, and every one that you remove makes a real difference to real people. So thankfully, you can remove accessibility barriers in your designs for a huge number of people just by being aware of this stuff and thinking about how we mark things up, thinking about the fact that people use screen magnifiers or use screen readers or refreshable braille displays, touch feedback devices and such, that not everybody is super accurate with their mice, so having large click targets and things like that, that some people rely on eye tracking, and that we need to have captions and subtitles and audio descriptions and stuff like that for our videos, transcripts and such. We also need to think about how we use color. So we need to avoid relying on color alone to convey important information. So on top here, I have a series of buttons, confirm and cancel in green and red. And then below is what they look like for people who have a form of red-green color blindness, which affects about 2% of men and about 0.5% of women. This is really important for charts as well. which the best recommendation for charts is to have patterns for your lines or your bar graphs in addition to differences of color in order to help people who may not be able to see your color. There are a number of tools available to check contrast. Good contrast ensures that your content is going to be readable. This is one from Leah Veru that I highly recommend called Contrast Ratio. There's a link at the bottom. We need to avoid referring to elements by location. I see this all the time on forums especially, or kind of overview pages and stuff like that. Look to the top left, look to the top right. That's not terribly useful. We can use anchor references, however, to get people around the page, to link them directly to what we're talking about. So in this case, I'm linking to a figure, and that figure has an ID, so I can use an anchor reference that is hash and then whatever the ID value is to jump immediately to that point, and that moves focus to it. We need to provide ample space around elements in order to ensure people don't misclick. I'm sure at least a few of you in this room are as fat-fingered as I am on a touchscreen device and routinely click the wrong thing, especially really small checkboxes or radio controls or buttons. And then we need to think about what it is that our designs leave unsaid. So a lot of times we see interfaces that have things like click here, and that's the link, or finish reading, or something like that. And if somebody is using assistive technology like a screen reader, they may be actually traversing the document from interactive element to interactive element. And so if there are a bunch of articles that you're linking off to, and they all say click here, click here, click here, that doesn't help them, right? That doesn't tell them anything about where it is that they're going. So the best thing you can do is actually have useful text, where maybe learn more about product XYZ is the actual title of the link as opposed to click here. But if for some reason you need to have the visible text be something short and pithy, like finish reading, you could do something like this, where where we're only exposing the finish reading visually, but there is more text in there. Sorry, let me go back. There's more text in there, so the full length text says you can finish reading. The web should just work for everyone in less than 10 minutes. So that's what would be read by assistive technology, but visually displayed, all we see is finish reading, because we're using CSS to hide the rest of it. Now this can cause some issues for people who are sighted, but rely on dictation programs to navigate web pages, because now the link text actually doesn't match up with the visible text that they can see. So this is not necessarily the best approach. Another approach that you could take is using the ARIA label attribute to contain that same information. Or you could just make really good link text to begin with that's actually meaningful. So in this case, the ARIA label is what would be read out to assistive tech. So again, it comes down to thinking about a good baseline and then enhancing the experience for our users as we have opportunities to do so. So from a technical standpoint in the world of CSS, we can actually design this right into the code that we write by providing different experiences to users based on the capabilities or even the vintage of the browser that they happen to be using. So in this example, I've got a paragraph that has 2 color assignments in it. The first one is for a standard key value green, and the second one is an RGB value. And what happened, or an RGBA value, sorry. So older browsers that come along that don't understand RGBA, which is a relatively new color value, would only see the green, and the RGBA value would be ignored because the browser doesn't understand it, because browsers ignore what they don't understand, at least with HTML and CSS. However, newer browsers would come along and they would see the 2 values, and because the RGBA value is second, it would replace the green value. And so you'd end up with a slightly different tone. So this is a good way to provide a fallback. Similarly, if you're using CSS custom properties, this is a really good way to provide a fallback for a non-variable version of a font, because not all browsers understand CSS custom properties. So that's it on an individual property level, but we can actually do it at the declaration block level as well. So depending on the type of selectors that we use in CSS, we can deliver specific styles to only modern browsers. So this is a selector for H1s that have adjacent sibling paragraphs. So this is the has pseudo-class selector, which is a fairly modern selector. Not a whole lot of browsers support this. So browsers that don't understand it will ignore this entire rule set And browsers that do understand it would go ahead and apply the color green. Obviously, you wouldn't use this really for colors of green, but you can use this to specifically tailor particular design experiences to users. Taking it up a level, if you have multiple rule sets that you want to manage in this sort of a way, you can use media queries and such to do the same thing. So browsers that don't understand media queries at all, so this would be IE 8 and below, if you put a bunch of styles that rely on media queries inside of a media query or link to a style sheet using an @media or a media query media assignment, you can actually avoid delivering those styles to those older browsers and just give them a default block level view, so that mobile experience. And then you don't really have to test in them. You don't have to worry about those old browsers anymore. So browsers that don't understand media queries ignore the whole thing. Browsers that do get the green. And this actually applies in feature queries as well. So @supports is a new syntax in CSS. And what this actually allows you to do is check for support for particular CSS features and then have a collection of rule sets to be applied only when that is true. So in this case, @supports display grid, and I'm just doing paragraph green for simplicity, but you can imagine this would have a lot of styles that would only apply in the grid scenario because they wouldn't make sense elsewhere. So browsers that don't understand @supports at all, so older browsers would not see this, they would just ignore it. Browsers that do understand @supports but don't support display grid, which there are a few, would see it but ignore what's inside of it. And then browsers that understand both @supports and support display grid would apply the styles within, which is pretty cool. Now this seems like getting into the weeds a lot, I know, but it's actually super helpful to know this stuff because it helps you to be more efficient with the way that you're writing CSS. So when it comes to HTML and CSS, browsers ignore what they don't understand. And this is what enables us to progressively enhance things. And the new specs that are coming out actually allow us to override those conflicting syntaxes, just like we saw in Manuel Matosevic's demo here. So again, to reiterate, when you apply flexbox, the float rules are thrown out. When you apply grid, the flexbox rules are thrown out, which is pretty cool. So we go along and enhance the design as we're able to do so. Now, when it comes to layout, you might think that all layout approaches are equal, but I want to tell you that thinking of your designs from a narrow viewport first and then adding styles for wider viewports as they're needed is absolutely the way to go. And it will help you to write smaller and more efficient CSS, which means you're delivering less code to your users ultimately. So to demonstrate this, I'm just going to do a simple scenario of stacked blocks on a small screen side by side that go, or rather on a small screen stacked that go wider and sit side by side. So there are better solutions for this. I'm going to use floats just because people with old school CSS knowledge, this is easier to follow than Flexbox and Grid. So bear with me on that. But if we were to approach this with our desktop site being the core design, right? And then we were to, so we're setting it up with the blocks being side by side first, and then only when the screen is below a certain width, we make them stacked again. We're creating additional code, right? Because we're applying styles and then we're having to undo them. So it's a subtractive approach to design. Whereas if we move from the mobile first standpoint, we think about that stacked being the default, we're going with the flow as far as the browser is concerned, and then we can just apply the styles that we need on the wider screen when it actually makes sense to do so. So we end up with considerably fewer lines of CSS for something simple as putting two things next to one another. So, apply this out to all of the different things that you're doing in your design and your CSS, and it's a lot of code you end up saving if you start with a small screen and enlarge it until things start to look wonky, apply a media query, do some style changes, and then enlarge it, do the same thing, rinse and repeat. That's considered the best approach to doing media queries. And obviously, your media query sizes will vary based on the site. But min width is the type of media queries you want to go with as opposed to max width. Now, there are a number of other ways that you can think about small screen first design to improve the overall performance in UX. You can selectively deliver advanced styles. So I sort of alluded to this. In a lot of the work that I've done, I'll have a baseline style sheet that's delivered to everybody, and then I'll have a separate style sheet that's the advanced styles. And that actually has a media query in the media assignment of the link element in the head of the document that says only screen. And that only keyword causes any browser that doesn't understand media queries to ignore that style sheet entirely. So that's how I don't even have to give older browsers that don't understand media queries any of that additional CSS. They just don't get it, which is awesome. So it's a much more svelte experience for them. You can also isolate large CSS images inside of your media queries. This is another reason to go from the mobile first standpoint, because the browser will only apply those background images and such when you reach that media query. Whereas if you're shrinking, if you're going from a max width media query, it will apply all of those images and they will all be downloaded, which is not a great thing for performance. Don't hide your content images using CSS, because even if they're not visibly displayed on the screen, if there's an image element in the document, the browser is going to download that, whether it's being rendered or not. So be aware of that. Use responsive images whenever you can. So that's the source set and sizes attributes and the picture element. Prefer using system fonts if you can get away with it. And you might even consider using font display optional, which is a neat CSS property that allows the browser to download the font file, but it waits until the second render of your site, so the next page the user goes to, in order to actually apply that. So you don't end up with that sort of flash where you see one font and then it switches to a different font when the other font file has been downloaded. Or you don't end up in the situation where nothing is rendered until the font files are downloaded, which sucks equally. Right? So screen real estate is a capability just like any other, and we can enhance the user experience of our products as we have more of it to work with. Which brings us to the final step in this how-to, using JavaScript to support and enhance the core experience. So when it comes to HTML and CSS, as I mentioned, browsers ignore what they don't understand. Sadly, that's not the case with JavaScript. What happens if a browser doesn't understand the let keyword? This keyword was introduced in ECMAScript 2015, otherwise known as ES6. And in this code, I'm simply using it inside of a for loop, right? Now, and there's the let called out there. Now, in a modern browser, it goes through and it puts out 1, 2, 3, 4 success, right? All this stuff works. It works just as we'd expect it to. But on older browsers that don't understand let, all of the JavaScript fails, all of it. The stuff before the let, the stuff after the let, the stuff inside the block. This includes IE 10 and below. It includes Opera Mini, which has about 5% of the web traffic globally. It includes the Android and QQ browsers. There are a lot of browsers that don't understand this keyword, and it causes all of your JavaScript to fail. This is why transpilation is such an important thing. So we just need to be considerate when we're writing JavaScript that this is a program that we're running in the browser, and we don't control where it's being executed, so we don't know that all of our code is going to execute properly. So just building some awareness. More dependencies, more potential issues. This can happen with anything. The reality is that your JavaScript, if your JavaScript is necessary to use your site, you may run into issues with users actually being able to use your site. It can happen, and it does happen. And the important thing to recognize is that your analytics may not be able to tell you how many users don't have JavaScript, because most of your analytics programs rely on JavaScript to capture that information. So just something to keep in mind. Now, GitHub's engineering team recently wrote a lengthy piece about removing their dependencies on jQuery, and it's really, really interesting. Because they also talked about how their JavaScript approach doesn't assume that JavaScript is available. And the particularly interesting bit I want to call out here is that they actually focused on getting away with a regular HTML foundation as much as possible, and then only adding in the JavaScript behaviors as a progressive enhancement, which is fantastic. So we can and should use JavaScript, but we need to do so thoughtfully and intentionally. I'm not against using JavaScript. I just want us to be realistic about its fragility. So depending on your project setup, you might, if you're doing a single page app, for instance, you might consider introducing server-side rendering. And then when the browser has rendered your document, you can take it over with that single page application and build the experience out from there in JavaScript. But at least you've got that baseline experience that's available to anybody, even if something goes wrong with your JavaScript. Airbnb is a classic example of this. Or you can do it on the feature level. So we just recently introduced support in Edge for WebAuthn, which is a way to go passwordless for login and such. And I won't get into kind of the nitty-gritty of how it works, but basically it allows you to use Windows Hello or any sort of biometric login to be able to log into sites. So in this demo of the store, I'm already logged in. They have a credit card on file. They recently added WebAuthn support. So when I choose to purchase at the end, it notices that my browser supports WebAuthn and asks if I want to upgrade to using that. And so I can go ahead and use that as a way of completing my transaction. It stores a private key on my machine and then handles the negotiation from there on out. And then the next time that I come back again, I can just use Windows Hello in order to log in, which is pretty cool. And this is a standardized spec, so you can do it in Android and on other platforms as well that support biometric login, which is pretty cool. And because it's a cross-platform standard, we can actually test for it. We can see whether support is available by testing for navigator.credentials. And if that exists, then we can use all of the code, which I'm not really going to get into here, in order to create the credential and then verify it later on. So on our enhancement curve, you could have just a basic password authentication, and then when WebAuthn is available, we can have that enhancement to create that better experience. So it feels much more like a native app all of a sudden, even though you're still using the web to do it, which is pretty cool. And you don't even need to be a PWA to take advantage of WebAuthn, but it certainly makes your progressive web app seem a little bit more appy, right? Now, some of you are probably wondering, hey, wait, progressive web apps and service workers rely on JavaScript, right? Well, yeah, they do. They do absolutely rely on JavaScript. But service workers, what's interesting is they were designed as an enhancement to existing web pages. So they're not a requirement to use the page at all. So we go through the process of registering a service worker by looking to see if navigator.serviceworker is supported. And then once we've done that object detection, we can go through the process of creating our service worker and attaching the worker file and stuff. So effectively, we have a normal site that becomes a PWA, right? Or to break it down further, we could say we've got a normal site that becomes a PWA in browser, or that's also installable. And since service workers kind of have their own levels of enhancement, you could even go from like a site that has less network reliance, one that's offline, one that has synchronization that happens, one that has push notifications, and then in the not too distant future, we'll be getting a regular sync, a periodic sync that allows you to pull new information from the server even when the browser's not open, which is pretty cool. And more enhancements will come with time, I'm sure. And on Windows, we actually can enhance PWAs when they're installed with native APIs. So figuring out whether the user is in dark mode, for instance, which is kind of cool. So we can check for the window.windows object. And once we know that that's available, we know we're in WinRT land, and we can access information about the UI settings, find out what the colors are that are being used for the background, and then adapt the layout base or the design based on that. And that's actually what Twitter uses to support dark mode in their app automatically. So when you switch to dark mode in your OS settings, Twitter will automatically become dark as well. And this is just some demo code that shows how it works. So the next time I open it, that app is automatically in dark mode, which is kind of cool. So there are a ton of really useful things that we can do with JavaScript, but it's important that we remember that we can't be certain that our JavaScript is going to reach our users. And we should always be looking to enhance our users' experience, but not at the expense of a robust, universally available baseline. As I mentioned before, PWAs start with a great web experience and then enhance that experience for performance, resilience, installation, and engagement. And they all start with that great web experience. So we build great web experiences by first focusing on what matters, second, using markup that supports that core experience, designing in support of that core experience, and then finally, improving that core experience with JavaScript. Thank you all very much. think we have a few minutes for questions. We've got 5 minutes for questions, but if you have questions that you don't get to here, you can always hit me on Twitter as well, or shoot me an email. Oh, sure. Yeah, no problem. There's microphones at the front if anybody has questions, or you can just feel free to come up here too. Yeah.
I got an old system, classic table layout.
Mm-hmm.
Have any utilities that help me convert that over?
Facilities for helping you convert table layouts over? Oh man, that's going to be a toughie. I mean, it's going to take a while to do that, especially if it's deeply nested tables, which that's what I came up on. Like I got crazy good at finding broken table cells and stuff back in the Netscape 4 days. Yeah, that's going to be tough. I would say if it's templatized, it's going to be a lot easier to do because you can adjust that one template and maybe do it a bit at a time. Oh, it's all classic ASP, so it's all inline ASP tags and stuff like that. Yeah. Oh man, that's gonna be a rough one. Yeah, I would say there's gonna need to be manual stuff. I don't know of any easy automated way to go about doing that, but yeah, a little bit at a time is kind of the best approach. I know for a lot of like kind of wholesale changing of things for companies, a lot of times what they've done is found a way to kind of work on one section at a time and kind of do it almost under the radar and then flip on things that were new. So like the BBC, when they were moving over to a responsive design, they were taking their aging desktop thing and trying to bring it into the modern era, right? And I'm sure some of that was probably table-based layouts. They actually took their mobile version and made that responsive first, and then circled back and basically ate the desktop site. Twitter's doing the same thing right now with their PWA, where their PWA site came up as the light version for people on low-end devices and on crappy networks, and now it's actually eating the desktop site. So there might be some way to think about it like, okay, how can we do like a small section under the radar and kind of go page by page or section by section and slowly do it, but it's going to be a challenge, definitely. I don't envy you that, but your users will thank you in the end. And honestly, you might get to a certain point where certain things can be taken out easily, certain things are harder to take out, and there are ways to make table-based layouts not so bad for accessibility, but they're pretty bad in general. So yeah, I don't know. We can hit me up, shoot me an email or something, and we can talk about some strategies. It might be helpful to actually see what you're dealing with to be able to give you some direct advice. It's always hard to say in general, but.
And I have had no luck.
Yeah, there you go.
Getting this thing right. This time,
Yeah, thanks.
If you use it,
Yeah.
for example, if you try removing something from
Service worker and cache still show up as experimental.
it takes like
This
2
is
seconds.
careful using that in production.
Press the
So
back button. It doesn't
I have
take
app
off
cache, which is
Right.
tired, right?
Yeah, app cache is going away, which service worker, if you've got a service worker, the browser won't apply app cache, which is kind of a nice enhancement as well. But yeah, I mean, there are features of service worker that are still experimental, like the bidirectional, or not the bidirectional, the periodic sync is still experimental, but other than that, I mean, all of the core stuff of fetch and caching and stuff like that, that's all, it's all working in every modern browser, including Safari. Safari and Edge were the last two to land service worker and cache and fetch support. But it's all there now. Everybody's got kind of their own push notification implementation, but even that works across the board now.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Anyone else? Other questions? Yeah? Yeah. I believe the slide deck is available to download now. Yeah, and I'll put it up on SlideShare probably tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah. I don't use frameworks at all. I'm a hand coder, old school. Yeah. Exactly. That's the major problem with frameworks is that a lot of times there's so much unused code, so you need to be really rigorous about pulling out the stuff that you're actually not going to use, which most people don't do. Which is why I think prototyping in Bootstrap and such is great, but if you're going to migrate that stuff into production, you really need to pull out as much as possible that you're not using, and not enough people do that, unfortunately. So I know that like Chrome DevTools has a code coverage inspector that'll tell you how much of the code that's been downloaded is actually being used currently. Some of that can be a little bit iffy because it may not, like you may have code in your CSS that only applies if you're logged in and you're a particular type of customer. Like, so there's always going to be variance, or there's some JavaScript that's not being used currently, but it may come into play if something else happens on the page. So like, there's always going to be a grain of salt that needs to be taken with, but the code coverage tool in Chrome DevTools can help you to see what's being used and what's not on a broad, in a broad sense. And usually it's like 70 or 80% of your JavaScript's not actually being used, but especially if you're using a framework like React or something. Yeah, did you have a question? Yeah, no worries. I'll repeat it here so that everybody can hear it.
So towards the beginning, you mentioned that you made your book website web app, and when you go to it, it'll cache like videos and all that. Is there a way to, like, say you're a user and you have a limited network connection, is there a way to prompt the end user, like, if that's something, or like to selectively cache things, like say they don't want to read the book, but they don't want all the videos?
Yeah, so there are definitely ways that you can ask the user to, for permissions. And I think the same thing, I mean, now with responsive images, I don't think it's as much of an issue, but I used to think like, hey, we have like high definition images, like do you want to load the high definition images or not? There's also like network information APIs. So I saw an example service worker that Dean Hume put together that actually will look for the network connection information, and if you're on like a 2G connection or something like that, he replaces all image requests with a gray SVG box, which is super smart. So yeah, there are some examples. Dean Hume is the one that I would recommend. I did a live like Q&A about PWAs last week on Twitter. If you follow the, I want to say it's the Windows Developer Twitter handle. I link off to Dean Hume's thing, or you can just remember Dean Hume, but there's definitely some ways that you can do that. And certainly service workers can be abused, and you can load somebody's cache with a bunch of stuff that they don't need. But yeah, so with great power comes great responsibility, right? Yeah, no problem. Thank you. You have a question?